Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Here we are with our channel Bhagavad-gita. Here it is with the book Bhagavad-gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. My name is Labanga Latika. We are reading the 6th chapter, Jnana Yoga. And the last episode, I think I got a little technical because I think I covered a little too much text in one go. But I hope you're still with me. Today we are reading text 41 of the 6th chapter, Jnana Yoga. Prapya punya kritang lokan ushitva shashvati samaha suchinang srimatangehe yoga bhrashto bhijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Purport. The unsuccessful yogis are divided into two classes. One is fallen after very little progress, and one is fallen after long practice of yoga. The yogi who falls after a short period of practice goes to the higher planets, where pious living entities are allowed to enter. After prolonged life there, one is sent back again to this planet to take birth in the family of a righteous Brahmana, Vaishnava, or of aristocratic merchants. The real purpose of yoga practice is to achieve the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, as explained in the last verse of this chapter. But those who do not persevere to such an extent, and who fail because of material allurements, are allowed by the grace of the Lord to make full utilization of their material propensities. And after that, they are given opportunities to live prosperous lives in righteous or aristocratic families. Those who are born in such families may take advantage of the facilities and try to elevate themselves to full Krishna consciousness. So Arjuna's doubt was this: if you maybe live materially and you have a certain position, and especially in a Vedic sense, you fulfill your certain dharmic duties, creating a better karma for yourself and a better life in the next one, and then you take up spiritual life, because Krishna is urging Arjuna to take up spiritual life, because that is the main priority of the human form we have in the human form of life. And then Arjuna is saying, what if you fail? First you've given up your material position, and then you lose your spiritual position. Doesn't that mean you're completely lost? And Krishna is saying no. He doesn't just say no on general principle. He gives us a very detailed description here. The unsuccessful yogi gets a higher birth. So if we do our karma in order to get a higher birth, then we don't need to hesitate to take up yoga. And with yoga I mean spiritual self-realization for realizing our connection to the Supreme. Because there is no loss. Even if we endeavor the whole life according to knowledge of the dharma and the karma and the activities in order to get a higher birth in this material world, there is no higher birth in this world than going to the heavenly planets. So the yogi gets that automatically, and when he comes back down, or she, that's his language, whoever does it, comes back to this world and takes birth either as a Vaishnava Brahmana or as a person with a certain level in society. And these things are generally achieved by good karma. And here they are given to a yogi because he failed. So really, you don't risk anything by taking up spiritual life. That's what Krishna is saying. Also, those two examples of yogis means what I've heard, that if you fall down from spiritual life because you're maintaining those desires for material enjoyment, then that's what you get. You get material enjoyment in the heavenly planets, and you get material enjoyment in a rich or aristocratic family. But if you actually, your aim and your desire was to complete and realize your spiritual position as a servant of Krishna, but due to previous conditioning or some accidental fall down, you break your process, then you get to take birth in a family of Vaishnavas, so you can easily pick up where you left off. So sometimes we stress the focus on how to be strict, how to be strong, how to protect ourselves against any fall down. And then sometimes we also stress what Krishna is saying here. Even if you fail, you don't fail, because when you do turn to Krishna and you aspire to surrender to him and to realize your loving relationship of transcendental service to him, then Krishna will not let you fall. He will not let you fail. He will not stand there and waiting for the opportunity to punish you for your mistakes. That's not our Krishna at all. I will read one more text, 42. Athava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabham tarang loke janma yad idrisham. Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. Purport. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, those with great wisdom, is praised herein because the child born in such a family receives a spiritual impetus from the very beginning of his life. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. Such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India there are many such Acharya families, but they have now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. By the grace of the Lord, there are still families that foster transcendentalists generation after generation. It is certainly very fortunate to take birth in such families. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord, and both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on we met by the order of the transcendental system. Yes, so Prabhupada brings in his own experience here. In his family, from the very childhood, they were worshipping Krishna, they were hearing about Krishna, they were singing Krishna's name, and Prabhupada got all those impressions and all those instructions from a very early time. And his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was the son of Srila Bhakti Vinod. And of course, this format, I'm not going to speak very long, but you can look it up. You can read about these great personalities and their lives. They did a lot to establish Krishna consciousness in such a way that it would be accessible to the modern man. And in Bhaktisiddhanta's case, this was in the 1800s, and Bhakti Vinod, that was probably in the early 1800s as well. So at that time, the English were ruling India, the British were ruling India, and life was different from the time when Krishna lived. And Prabhupada came to us here in the West in the 60s, mid-60s, and life here was certainly different than India in Krishna's time. But this knowledge is transcendental. This knowledge is eternal. It's always applicable. But sometimes you have to introduce it in such a way that it's applicable, accessible to the present crowd, so to say. So that is one aspect that we hear of here, of course. But the other aspect is also what Krishna is saying. That person who sincerely tried to develop Krishna consciousness, to practice, to grow and advance, but didn't quite make it, there is no loss. Krishna will certainly, personally, give that person his next birth in that position, which will give him the most easiest access to take it up. And I also have seen personally, we have families of Krishna conscious devotees, and families have children, and these children, they are different. Different families have different children, but some of them from a very early age, they take very sincerely to Krishna consciousness, because it's you can almost see it, that this is not a stumbling beginning, they just landed in the place where they would feel most at home, where they could immediately take up this Krishna consciousness. And so for anyone who takes to spiritual life, because especially nowadays, I'm thinking society has become so hard and so difficult, and if you lose your footing just a little bit, you look around and there are beggars in the street. We never had beggars in the street in Sweden. You know, we're supposed to be civilized. We're supposed to be able to care for those, the weakest members of our society. And then at one point we stopped doing it. And then, of course, when I came in contact with the Hare Krishna movement, it was just after the 70s and the very beginning of the 80s. And we still had this sense of security. There would always be somewhere to live. There would always be some income. There would always be. So we took the risks. Because we were not afraid. We took the risk to step into the Krishna temple and take up this Krishna consciousness, because we had no idea that the material world was a dangerous place. And I can see that nowadays, young people, they have to focus more on school. They have to focus more on finding a job, finding a home. All these things that were more or less automatic when I was young. Now it's a struggle and it's difficult. And of course, it makes you maybe a little more fearful to take the spiritual life. So one thing is here, this how to say, Krishna is ascertaining Arjuna. It's no danger, this life or the next. Krishna will always take care of us. Of course, we're also saying, yes, which is Krishna is actually also saying to Arjuna, no need to step out of society and become a yogi in a cave somewhere. You can definitely stay in your position, in your work, in your studies, in your family, and you can add Krishna consciousness. You can take up the practice of Krishna consciousness in your present situation. But even if you give everything up to just dedicate yourself to Krishna's service, Krishna says, there's no fear, because when you give yourself to Krishna, he gives himself to you. I think maybe I will read the next verse also, 43. Tatratang buddhisang yogang labate porvadehikam yatate chatato bhuya sangsidho kurunandana. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Purport. King Bharata, who took his third birth in the family of a good Brahmana, is an example of good birth for the revival of previous transcendental consciousness. King Bharata was the emperor of the world, and since his time this planet has been known among the demigods as Bharatvarsha. Formerly it was known as Ilavrita Varsha. The emperor, at an early age, retired for spiritual perfection but failed to achieve success. In his next life, he took birth in the family of a good Brahmana and was known as Jada Bharat, because he always remained secluded and did not talk to anyone. And later on, he was discovered as the greatest transcendentalist by King Rahugana. From his life, it is understood that transcendental endeavors or the practice of yoga never go in vain. By the grace of the Lord, a transcendentalist gets repeated opportunities for complete perfection in Krishna consciousness. Yes. So do you want to hear the story about King Bharata? I can't resist it. King Bharata, as is described here, he was the emperor of the whole planet, and he was very spiritually aware and advanced. He was also a very good king, but as the scriptures enjoin, at a certain time you're supposed to give up everything material, retire and focus on your spiritual practice. And in those days it was meditation. It's different in different ages. So Bharata Maharaja went to the forest, sat down in the prescribed place and way and direction, and focused on his meditation. And he was very austere and he was very simple, and he had no problems at all giving up his riches, his power, his beautiful wife, his family. We're not saying that you should just be careless with your family, but at one point a spiritual life has to become the most important thing in your life, because this is the human form of life. This is the opportunity for spiritual realization. So in those days he both wanted to show the example, and he wanted to take the path for his own spiritual advancement. And he was progressing very nicely. He was sitting in the fort, he was meditating, he was able to very easily leave aside all material attractions, desires, and bonds in this world. And then one day there was a deer, and she was running for her life because a lion was chasing her. And when she jumped over a river, she happened to give birth to a little baby deer, what you call them, a kid, I think. And somehow, I don't remember exactly if she was killed or if she managed to run away, but this little deer baby was still there. And Bharata, because he was a devotee, he was also soft-hearted, and he also felt, this little thing cannot survive. So he took care of it, and he gave it grass, and he gave it shelter. And then gradually, he developed a very strong attachment. So when he was going to sit down and meditate, he was always looking around, where is the deer? And he would pet the deer, and he would care about the deer. And when he came to the end of his life, and he gave up everything in order to be able to focus his attention, so that at the time of death, he would be able to focus on Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. But he became so attached to this deer that at the time of death he was just thinking, oh no, I can't die. The poor little deer, how will he manage? So since that was his thought at the time of death, his next life he took birth as a deer. But that was not an ordinary deer, because he kept his memories. Because in general, from one life to another, we forget everything. But of course, as we can see in the Bhagavad-gita also, Krishna says, from me comes memory, forgetfulness, knowledge, memory, and forgetfulness. So Krishna, super soul in the heart, he can give us access to those memories, or he can kind of protect us from those memories. So in the case of Bharata Maharaj, in his deer body, he remembered everything, and he realized this was really silly. Why did I do that? Why did I fail? So even as a deer, he was very sincere. He decided to continue with his austerities. He would only eat dry leaves. You have never seen an animal do that. Decide to go on a strict path of renunciation. He would only eat dry leaves, and he will come to the temple of Krishna daily and bow down in respect, and simply remember Krishna even in this body. And the next life he took birth as Bharata. And there he was born in a Brahmana family, but he thought, I'm not getting entangled with anyone. I'm not even going to talk to anyone. So he appeared outwardly like he was a little, intellectually challenged. His Brahminical father would give him instructions, and he would just do it backwards. If you want to be clean, when you go to the bathroom afterward, you have to wash your hands. And Bharata, he listened to the instruction, and he did it the other ways around. He washed his hand, and then he went to the bathroom. So everybody thought he was a little simple. But at a later point in time, he was picked up to help carrying the king's palanquin. And then he was walking, and he wasn't walking so nicely. And the king was getting annoyed because his palanquin was shaking a bit. So he was yelling at him, yeah, you look like you're strong and stout, but you can't even carry the palanquin properly. And then he answered. He hadn't spoken a word his whole life, but he turned back to the king and gave him spiritual instruction about the difference between the body and the soul, and what is the highest duty in life. So he kept that knowledge through his lives, and Krishna gave him the exactly perfect situation to take the next step and the next step. So yeah, now I'm talking again. My endeavor is to keep these episodes or installments a little bit short, because I know watching a screen you can't keep the attention for forever. But anyway, I really like this story. So it shows that when you turn to Krishna, Krishna will not forget you. And whatever birth you take, you would say an animal birth, it's not very glorious. No, but this time it wasn't just a thing of karma. It was a thing of Krishna helping him to understand what he missed, what he could have done better, and he had also a full opportunity to come back to it. And so is it for all of us. If we take to Krishna consciousness, and somehow or another, due to our own conditioning, due to our inability to give up the material consciousness, the attachment to this body and the senses and so on. We can make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But Krishna can also, help us with the next situation and the next situation. And whatever spiritual advancement we've made, they are never lost. They are with us forever. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. And yes, you have been watching YouTube before. There is a box underneath. I put some links in there. Check them out. Even further, we have a comment field. Questions are so very welcome, and I will come back to them as soon as I see them. We have videos coming out Tuesdays and Fridays, and I hope you'll come back and watch us again. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.